More and more Canadians are investing an interest in the game of golf, according to golfcanada.ca. The game of golf accounts for approximately $18.2 billion of Canada's gross domestic product, which is up 14% from 2014 when it stood at $15.9 billion. At Golf Ontario, their vision is towards a nation of golfing. They're on a mission to help shape lives by leading, creating, and promoting positive golf experiences. Nick Taylor is the Senior Director of Marketing for Golf Ontario. It's his job to invest time, energy, and enthusiasm in growing the game of golf in Ontario, and doing all he can to turn the game into a sporting and national Canadian pastime. Taylor joined me this week to have that very discussion of how we grow the game of golf across the province of Ontario. I'm Kevin McShane. Let's have this conversation. Nick, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, my friend. And I'm super excited to talk to you about growing the game of golf in the province of Ontario. Great to be with you this morning, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, and I know at Golf Ontario, Nick, you're focused on creating positive experiences and growing the game of golf, and I know that your tagline there is a nation towards golfing. So tell me about all the great work that you do there at Golf Ontario about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that our mission and our vision really are very succinct and very clear. You know, when we talk about towards a nation golfing, we have a wonderful, diverse community across this great country. You know, Canada is known as a very welcoming sort of melting pot of different cultures, people with different backgrounds, and you know, different lived experiences. And you know, here in Ontario, being one of the largest provinces, both in terms of population and economic impact and opportunity, it positions us as a provincial sport organization to reach a great many of those different people, different folks, in terms of encouraging them to pick up the game. And in terms of our statement, you know, shaping lives through golf, I think it really aligns with the values that we hold dear to us, which are passion for everything that we do, for the game, for being outside, for the recreational aspect and the competitive aspect of the game, respect for the traditions of the game and for the playing partners we're playing with and the rules of the game, being accountable to you know, looking after the golf courses and the environment that those courses are in, and being brilliant from an organization, you know, trying to demonstrate value, whether you are a newcomer to the game or someone who's been playing for your whole life. I mean, these values are things that can you know, provide life lessons. When you look at how we introduce the game to youngsters for the first time, either through youth on course programs or through First Tee Ontario, it's about teaching underrepresented groups or providing access to groups to the game, and letting them know that there are life lessons of respect and sportsmanship and individual growth and teamwork that can come from the game. And then, of course, the benefits of a healthy, active lifestyle. Golf contributes to that, unlike many other sports. And obviously a move to more accessibility in golf as well, whether that's financial affordability, removing barriers like that. Youth on Course program can facilitate things of that nature, our Try Women's Golf Series, and also making things more accessible to people that are differently abled. And I know we'll talk more about that later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick, you touched on it a little bit in your first answer, but I'm wondering if we can dive deeper into specifically how do you market the game of golf to the younger demographic, and how we really grow the game of golf across the province?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a father of three kids, and I think that young people can become a product of their environment. So there's no question when kids are exposed to golf because grandma and grandpa play or mom and dad play, or because there's access to a program in school, like a golf in school program, or that in their community there's a local executive par 3 or a 9-hole course that offers an introduction to golf through Youth on Course, where it's only $5 to come out and play. Certainly, having programs that provide exposure, awareness, and opportunities, because kids will see something and get excited about it, and then say, hey, I'd like to try that. It could be the same thing the first time they hear an amazing guitarist play a song on the guitar. Kids are wide-eyed and they're sponges and they just absorb things. I think that we have benefited, and I think globally this has happened, but certainly we're very proud of some of the golfers that have come out of Ontario. You just look at the recent Canadian Pacific Women's Open and the amazing crowd of people that was following Brooke Henderson and others. Brooke's from a small town in Ontario and was a multi-sport athlete as a young girl, playing hockey and golf and other things. And she's really one of the top players in the game in the world. And the Brooke Henderson effect has inspired young girls, and probably boys too, to pick up the game. And, so how do we create more excitement for youngsters? I think it's harnessing the new entrants at the top level of the game and telling their stories. Whether that's men or women, and from wherever they're coming from. The other thing I think that we can do as a provincial association, and I think we do a fairly good job of this, is, we run 54 qualifiers and 26 provincial championships at the amateur level of the game. And, one example of that would be, I was at the women's AM and mid AM, and when you see 12 and 14-year-old girls that are competing in a field with 40, 50, and 60-year-old women, and in some cases winning, and very much in that case winning, telling stories about these 12 and 13-year-old girls on our website, through our social media channels, so that parents, read those stories and articles, and doing as much as we can to get external writers, like, whether it's Score Golf or Flagstick Golf or, any of those endemic golf writers, to tell stories about these youngsters that are coming onto the scene, even at the amateur level. I think that that's going to inspire other young kids to say to mom and dad, hey, I'd like to try the game of golf.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick, you brought something that sparked my interest up, buddy. I'm a big believer that representation matters, and making sure that people see a version of themselves and the people that they aspire to be. So, taking that as a backdrop to my next question, I'm wondering where you think the game of golf can be marketed better to achieve better notoriety, and certainly, as you brought up, in your last answer, women are playing a big part in sort of bringing golf to the forefront, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's a perfect mousetrap that's been built, in the sports sector. There's no perfect model as to how to market, sports in general. I don't think, and part of that is because some sports benefit from having professional associations in their market. Others don't have it. There are sports that benefit from the halo effect of being in the Olympics. Golf is certainly one of them. With the Olympics being one of the biggest sporting events in the world every 4 years in terms of the summer games. So I think first in terms of marketing the game of golf, it's important to recognize how many different levels of folks there are in the game. I identify as a public player golfer. I'm someone, at 48 years of age, I've picked up a golf club for the first time when I was 10 or 11. My dad gave me a 4-iron and sent me out to the soccer field and said, go whack the ball around a little bit. I was hooked. And it wasn't long after, a year or two, that, I joined a little 9-hole course in the South Shore of Nova Scotia and played kind of regularly. But then, you get into school and university and adulthood, and maybe you're limited to just playing 2 or 3 charity tournaments a year and a couple of rounds with your friends, because it's very time consuming. So, touching on all those different things, how people come to the game, what causes them to leave the game periodically. There's so many different variables. So, what can we do? We can continue to leverage the assets we have, our website, our social media channel. There are well over 100,000 members of Golf Ontario, which represents about 35 or more % of the national membership. But there are probably 1.6 to 1.8 million people playing golf in this province. So, how do we reach the 1.2 actually it's more than that. How do we reach the sort of 1.4 or 1.5 million people that are playing golf in this province that are not members of our association? Because these are folks that are maybe only playing a few rounds a year. They're hacking around local municipal courses with their kids. So it's a different message to a different person. Someone who's competing in our amateur championships, they hear about us, they know about us, they have ample opportunities to play the game. But we have created programming like the Try Golf Women's Series to encourage, women to come to the game in a safe and welcoming environment, where there are no men around necessarily, and they can play at their own pace and they can learn the game, and there's a social element. And then you have Youth on Course, as I've mentioned earlier, where, providing access to golf at a very nominal fee of $5 means that, kids that have seen it on TV or have driven by a golf course and said, hey, what's that? They have an opportunity to try it. But storytelling will be critical, through our channels, telling stories about folks that have, I'll tell you a little diverging story here. So we had a woman who came to one of our women's try events this year, was very apprehensive, came with a friend, and didn't want to play with anybody else. Just the two of them wanted to go out. And so they did. And then the next time, because they'd had so much fun, when they came back to another try event, they said, we'd like to play by ourselves again. And then the organizer said, no, you're missing the spirit of this. You need to play with others. It's part of meeting people. So they said, okay. Well, the long and the short of it is, after that second round, they're now fast friends with those other 2 women that were total strangers to them ahead of time. The 4 of them have now planned a golf trip to Florida. And the third time one of those women went out, she actually hit a hole-in-one. So, this is the storytelling that will encourage other folks to see themselves as newcomers to the game and find the ways to come in and play the sport.
Yeah, there's nothing like authenticity to drive home a point of experience, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we're toying around with ideas as well, where we can encourage participants in the game to better share their moments, photos, videos, and things, and aggregating them in such a way. So we're hoping in the near future to have some of those authentic moments shared by participants through our social channels and our website in a way that is, user-generated content. Because again, as you said a moment ago, Kevin, representation matters, and people need to see themselves in the people that are doing things.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick, tell me, how does your mission statement drive the work that you do personally every day, and why is it so passionate for you? And then tell me about the best parts about golfing in the province itself.
Yeah, well, I think this day and age, if an organization doesn't have a strategic plan, they're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to grow. It doesn't matter whether you're a for-profit corporation or a nonprofit association in healthcare, sport, music, culture. You need a strategic plan, and we have a very good one. We have a brand new one that will take us through to the year 2026. And each of our employees in the organization can say that they have had paint on their fingers in developing that strategic plan. So it's not just something that is developed at the top and pushed down, because then you don't get buy-in. So across our entire organization, from our board of directors to our senior leadership, all the way through to our interns, we come to work every day and we are mindful of what our strategic objectives are within our strat plan about a mission of towards the nation golfing. And so if we catch ourselves on a day-to-day basis working on a project or an assignment or something, and then sitting there wondering, I'm not sure I see the connection and how this ladders up to our strategic plan. Is this something I should be spending time on? Then we quickly reflect on it. And if it doesn't support our strategic plan, we stop. We don't do it. Because it's, as I said, it's a good plan, it's very well thought out, and it's going to help deliver on a lot of new initiatives. Essentially what that means within my department as the head of marketing and communications is that our external communications needs to be reflective of the diversity of the participants in the game. We need to promote and celebrate not just the golfers at the competitive and high performance side of the game, but also at the grassroots level, the new entrants to the game. We need to also reflect on the diversity of different ages. I've talked about the very impressive young boys and girls that are coming into the sport, but as well as people that are still passionate and playing the game in their 60s and 70s, like on our senior championships. And we also need to ensure that we have a lens through our marketing efforts around our messaging to reach a variety of audiences. And while it's only 3 years ago that we created the Ontario Disability Championship, for example, it's still very much a part of our strategic plan, our DE&I initiatives, and we're very excited about growing that, in a very sustainable way. So, how does all that lead to what's the best part of being involved in golf in Ontario? Where do I start? I think we have some really incredible golf courses and facilities across the province, from executive par 3 short courses that add value to certain newcomers to the game, people working on certain skills, a variety of 9-hole municipal tracks, all the way up to PGA Championship standard public and private courses. So we are really fortunate. There's well over 700 facilities in the province, and there's a place to play if you want to go find a place to play. I think we're also fortunate to play the game in the most populous province in the country, where roughly 35 to 40% of the golf community, as well as the golf membership, call home. And there's great diversity in the courses that we have as well in terms of geography, topography, and landscape. One day you can be playing Muskoka Bay Club, which has lots of cool rock features because it's up in the Muskoka region, or you could be on a links-style course out in Brampton, or playing several holes along the water, like out in Niagara on the lake. So I think that it's a great time to be playing golf in Ontario. The game is growing 20% year over year in terms of new entrants to the game. More young people are coming to the game. And the other thing I would mention is the emergence of more and more indoor facilities and indoor simulators, because we all know we tend to hibernate from sort of November to February or March in this country. And so having a lot more indoor facilities so that people can continue to practice and learn the game, and even potentially play in online simulator leagues is a really neat thing to do. So yeah, there's just so much to offer around golf in Ontario.
Yeah, consistency of performance is important, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, I'm still very much working on my game, even at 48 years of age, and you can't take yourself too seriously. So it's one thing at a time, and so I'm very fortunate, to live in Ontario and to be able to spend some time in simulators in the winter and play some of those executive par threes to work on my chipping and short game in the summer.
Yeah, and Nick, for you personally, I'm curious to know, do you have a favorite place to golf across the province?
Oh, I'm probably not the best equipped, to answer that question. Generally because, as I said, I've played mostly charity tournaments for the last 10, 15 years. And so while that's put me on some nice private courses because of the charitable aspect, I just haven't played a lot of golf before sort of this year, maybe. I have been fortunate though to play, St. George's, which hosted the Canadian Open, and wow, is that a challenging and beautiful golf course. I mean, even if you just walked it and watched people play, you'd have a great day. I mentioned Muskoka Bay Club. I could easily have mentioned Taboo or Ovenbird. I mean, there's some amazing golf courses up in what we consider cottage country. I spent I don't know, 2 weekends ago around the Canada Summer Games. I was out at the games in the Niagara region, and wow, does that part of Ontario have some really neat courses as well, especially Niagara on the Lake, which is one of North America's oldest golf courses. And with its proximity to the water there, it's just such an enjoyable round. So it would be tough to pick the best place for golf in Ontario. I think to each their own,
It's like a flavor of ice cream. Everybody's got a favorite, right?
Yeah. I will say this too, though. I mean, the Golf Ontario offices are on site at Wooden Sticks in Uxbridge. And if you haven't had a chance to go out, if people out there haven't had a chance to try Wooden Sticks, they should. They have some copycat holes, if you will. I think the number 3 and 4 are essentially copies of Amen Corner at Augusta. There's even a master scoreboard, the back of the fourth green, and I think it's the fourth green. And then there's a copycat of TPC Sawgrass number 17 with the island green that is famous for, they say 150,000 golf balls a year drop into the water, never to be seen again. So Wooden Sticks is also a really unique place to play here in Ontario.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick, I'm going to share just a bit about myself. I originally went to school to become a sports reporter, and the first story I ever covered in college was for a golf tournament, buddy. So I'm curious how we grow the game of golf from a media perspective, not only for folks with disabilities or for folks that want to get into covering the game of golf. And you also brought up the work that you're doing from a diversity, equity, and inclusion standpoint to include more individuals with disabilities. So I'll give you the floor to talk about both of those two elements as well.
Yeah, wow. I mean, so this is the second true sport organization I've worked in over the last 25 years, and probably the fourth or fifth organization I've worked in where I've had to have meaningful relationships with the media, whether that's business media, luxury market, or sport. Look, it's hard when you're not the top of the food chain. Like if I was sitting here working for the PGA Tour proper, I could get the attention of all the sports networks and all the top endemic sports writers and commentators. But we're not at that level. We're important in terms of funneling folks into the game. And, we do host a PGA Tour Canada event in the Sotheby's International Realty Canada Ontario Open, which we had our first event this July. But, it's a very, very busy calendar. So how do we get the attention of the folks at, Score Golf or TSN and Sportsnet or CBC Sports when our 54 qualifiers and 26 championships and our Youth on Course and Tri Women's Golf Series, when all those things are happening at the same time in direct competition with things like the CP Women's Open or the RBC Canadian Open, so it's about building relationships. And the great thing is that a lot of the golf media in particular, they really care about the game. It's not just a career or a living that they're making. I mean, they care about the game and they want to promote it. So, we continue to reach out to, the prolific golf writers, the Adam Stanley, who, just celebrated, I think, 9 years kind of in the industry this summer, is really making a name for himself. Obviously, folks like Jason Logan at Score Golf and Bob Weeks and Mark Zucchino at TSN, Golf Top Canada is a partner of ours. So we need to continue to maintain and grow relationships with the endemic golf media as well as the general sport media, but at certain times also lifestyle media. With a partner like Sotheby's International Realty Canada around the Ontario Open, that opens up the opportunity to talk to lifestyle, real estate, commercial business, luxury writers because of the connection to their business and the proximity of golf courses to luxury homes and properties. So same could be said about the growth in, the Ontario Disability Championship, which we held, this summer in July for the fourth time, reaching out to media that covers events that would normally cover things like for Special Olympics Ontario, Special Olympics Canada, different groups like that. So, I guess if there's anything I'm doing here today in this specific component, it would be a call out to all of your colleagues in the industry that we have some great stories to tell about the woman who tried golf for the first time and got a hole-in-one, all the way to the 12-year-olds that are competing and winning our provincial championships, as well as the incredible experience in things like the Disability Championship or the upcoming Indigenous Ontario Championship, which will be running and hosting for the first time ever this September. So it's a call to action to all the media to say, hey, we've got great stories to tell. We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick, you brought it up, so I'll just follow up with one quick follow-up. And I'm curious, is there any sort of criteria that you look for when you look to form new partnerships and relationships? And what sort of strategic advantage are you looking for when you go out to form new partnerships?
Yeah, well, look, I think number one, I would say that I don't think there's a sport association at any level in this country that can exist in any sustainable way without having good partners and sponsors. It's not enough to survive on the revenue generated by membership fees and the odd grant or support from government. That's not going to allow you to grow the sport and the organization. I think one of the first things we would try to do in seeking out partners and sponsors is looking for folks, brands, companies, corporate foundations that align with our values, right? That have the same shared value proposition. Certainly, it's a great bonus. I used to talk about the three legs of the stool, and the stool only sits on the ground if you have all three in place. And I think one would be the capacity to give or to support and sponsor. Two would be an interest in the game, the sport. And the third, of course, is those shared values, because then you can work well together. I think that golf in Ontario has a lot to offer, because whether you're somebody who believes in supporting the next generation of PGA and LPGA golfer, and so you want to support our Team Ontario athletes who are the cream of the crop youngsters who are probably going to go off on NCAA scholarships and maybe make the junior national team and become part of that pathway, then there's something there for a partner or sponsor in that aspect. If, however, you align with our DE&I initiatives and you want to get involved as a partner or sponsor around the Tri Golf Series for women, or the Ontario Disability Championship, or the upcoming Indigenous Ontario Championship, we have different things that can align with a lot of corporate partners' values and their own DE&I initiatives. So yeah, I mean, we rely on partners and sponsors. We have a great portfolio of partners now, but there's a lot of room for growth, and our door is always open.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick, my final question for you this morning has to do with what excites you most about the future of the game of golf across the province of Ontario?
I mean, I'm a relative newcomer to this association. I joined in April. I'm certainly no stranger to the game of golf. As I said earlier, I've played my whole life. But when you really start to peel back the layers of the onion as to, where is the sport today as a provincial sport organization within the framework of a national, sport body underneath Golf Canada. And I think that what I've learned very quickly in my first 4 months is that the growth in the game that was experienced during 2020 and 2021, when golf was really one of the only sports that could be played during the pandemic because it was outside, and there were some rough patches, and they're trying to decide, do you put foam in the cups, is there only one person per cart, all those things. But golf benefited from being, one of the only sports you could do. Like, I have friends whose kids are high-level lacrosse players, but when lacrosse was shut down, mom and dad were like, okay, let's go to the golf course. There's something to do. And now they've got the golf bug. So I'm excited about the fact that our sport was able to benefit through those challenging couple of years of the last 2 years of the pandemic restrictions. But what I'm also encouraged and excited about is that the growth in the game has continued this year. I know we're not out of the pandemic yet, for sure. I mean, you're hearing stories about restrictions and mask wearing at university campuses still this fall, but as we continue to emerge from the restrictions of the pandemic, the growth in the game is still tracking roughly at 20%, year over year, month to month, in terms of new entrants to the game. So I'm really excited about finding new ways to engage with the part of the golf community in Ontario. And I talked about it, 1.6 to 1.7 million folks are playing golf, but with only 100,000 of them being active members of Golf Ontario, the sky is the limit. It is a completely untapped market in there. If we can find the right ways to engage with folks that like the game, love the game, they just haven't found a reason to become members and become even better engaged with the game.
Yeah, and then finally, tell me if people want to get connected with Golf Ontario or the work that you do personally, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, I mean, our organization website is pretty simple. It's www.gao.ca. Our social media handles are at the Golf Ontario. You can find us pretty easily online. We do our best to ensure that there's something for everybody when you visit the website. Prime position is in promoting our competitions, so that if you're interested in showing up and watching some of the top amateurs play, you can see where they're playing in your local market. There's definitely sections on the website that let people know how they can get involved as a new entrant through Youth on Course or the Tri Women's Golf Series. And our contact information is there if you're interested as a partner sponsor or a member of the media who likes our story and wants to try to share those stories to a wider audience. Just visit us online and through our channels, and myself and my colleagues are almost always available and happy to talk about moving towards the nation golfing.
Fantastic. Well, as a sports nut myself, Nick, I circled this one on the calendar, and I want to Thank you for engaging in conversation with me about the game of golf across the province of Ontario. And I want to thank you for answering my questions and commending you on the great job you and your colleagues are doing and growing the game of golf across the province. Your work in the space and time on my behalf is most appreciated, my friend. And I want to thank you for being here this morning.
Well, again, Kevin, thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure talking to you. Obviously, I looked up your history. You're quite an accomplished sports journalist. You've put yourself in some great positions to write some great content and covering the game. And I hope we can stay connected and maybe have more opportunities to talk again in the future.